Conspiracy culture. I just want to kind of now discuss a variety of different conspiracy theories out there, ranging from some type of extraterrestrial involvement in our government, or whether or not 9/11 actually was real, or maybe if there's some type of secret cabal controlling the entire world. I just kind of wanted to, and perhaps maybe a little, I might discuss Jeffrey Epstein as well. So to kind of start off with extraterrestrial involvement, there was, again, following the 1947 Roswell crash, there was a lot of allegations going around by a bunch of different people that perhaps the US government was kind of cooperating with extraterrestrials from out of space, and that this was why a bunch of different things were happening around the world. And what's particularly interesting, a lot of people were kind of noting and kind of pointing out, was that like any type of nuclear disaster was immediately followed by lights in the sky. That's kind of that's what a lot of people were kind of paying attention and looking and carefully noting, right? That like following Hiroshima, some people were claiming that there was like a bunch of lights in the sky that corresponded to, like, you know, the stereotype of a UFO, like in being in the sky, the bright lights that are oddly formed, whatever. Any nuclear incident was immediately followed by some type of extraterrestrial presence in the sky, and as a lot of people were kind of taking note of this, and it's kind of makes you wonder why exactly were extraterrestrials kind of sort of following nuclear catastrophes, nuclear disasters. And there's a hypothesis that some of these extraterrestrials are kind of trying to safeguard humanity, mankind. Which specific extraterrestrials is kind of unknown, of course. Some people kind of theorize that, you know, there is this one specific breed of extraterrestrial, the Nordic aliens, Pleiadians, whatever you like to call it. They look like Scandinavian people and stuff, and they have blonde hair and blue eyes. And these ones are kind of trying to, they sometimes appear as light, balls of light in the sky, and they're trying to safeguard us. And so perhaps maybe this is the reason why we haven't just full out been devastated by a nuclear fallout or a nuclear war. Extraterrestrial involvement is kind of extremely interesting. And, you know, David Icke in his book, And the Truth Shall Set You Free, or something along those lines, he was kind of mentioning how a lot of people in our history might have been contacted and influenced by extraterrestrials. And he was talking about specifically the Prophet Muhammad. He was kind of claiming that, you know, the angel Gabriel might have actually been an extraterrestrial, right, that came and contacted Muhammad and tried to inspire him to be more, I guess, upright, to be more than just a regular person of his time. And that could have put, and of course, you know, like a lot of the events in Muhammad's life when he was like kind of experiencing those supernatural events, like it could have very easily been that these extraterrestrials used their advanced technology to kind of perform those miracles, so to speak, right? Not just Muhammad, plenty of other religious figures in our history, right, could have been inspired by extraterrestrials. Zoroaster, maybe not, but a lot of religious figures in our history, they alleged to have been seeing like stuff in the sky, and they could have just for them that could have just been like demons and angels and like some other like religious entity, because that's how they would have related to that type of phenomenon, right? You know, the biblical prophets, they probably a lot of them were claiming to see stuff in the sky. A lot of like in the Bible, especially in the book of Ezekiel, I remember that was like something that was kind of mentioned. He was the person in the Bible, that person, whoever he was, like in the book of Ezekiel, or maybe in some other part of the Bible, whatever. He was like, there were like mentions of like how he was taken up into the sky and he never returned. What does that like? Well, you can kind of figure out what that would mean, like some type of UFO coming and abducting him, right? All of these encounters, right? They could have just been early forms of the UFO phenomenon, right? Of the extraterrestrial experience. There's also a hypothesis going around that we were engineered by extraterrestrials, and that could explain why we were so rapidly evolving. Right? Like human evolution was kind of condensed quite quickly, and like you look at us, like for like millions of years, potentially we're just kind of being stupid, not doing anything important, and then there was a specific period in our time where there was this rapid advancement in everything. Like writing was invented, agriculture was invented, all of this stuff was just quickly condensed, and then we were off to become an industrial society. Right? A lot of people theorize that this could have been kicked off by some type of extraterrestrial involvement. And if you look at our genetics, right, like our genes, there's like a ton of problems with our genetics, which would kind of indicate that we've been kind of tampered with. Right? If you look at our for like, this is kind of going to be a little bit gross, but most placental mammals have a baculum, a penis bone, but Homo sapiens don't have this biological feature. And a lot of people could theorize and do theorize like some ET. This is because we were our genetics were tampered with, and the aliens took this out of our bodies. I don't know, to make us more, to make us more, I guess, less beastly, more sophisticated, whatever. And it's kind of something you should take note of. Right? Most placental mammals have a baculum, except for us Homo sapiens. Even chimps have a penis bone, right? But we don't have that feature, and there's no reason why. You could kind of argue, well, it would have hindered reproduction, but if that was the case, then chimps would have also lost their penis bone, right? The other primates would have lost theirs, but they still have theirs, and we don't. And that could be because we were kind of like tampered with. Our DNA could have been messed with, right, by some type of extraterrestrial entity, and that's kind of. And if you look at all the reports going around the world, like millions of people are claiming that they were abducted by ETs, by extraterrestrials, and I don't believe that's like just made up. I don't believe that's just like some type of amnesia, like some type of psychosis that these people are suffering from. They're probably encountering real things, and they're trying to do their best to confirm this. But I believe that we extraterrestrials were heavily involved in our history, and they still are, and they're probably in contact with the world governments, and they're probably doing a lot of other things that we're none the wiser to. But to kind of push off from this, and I want to kind of get into the conspiracy of 9/11, because a lot of people claim no planes, right? And that immediately when I say that, like, a lot of people are going to be kind of thrown back. Well, why are you a believer in conspiracy theories? Why are you a terrorist? If you look at the way the planes, it doesn't logically add up. The planes symmetrically fell downwards. Right? The plane just, and it's also interesting. I don't want to kind of claim anything, right? But it's like some guys, I heard some guy saying that like a bunch of people were like during the 9/11 attack, there was a bunch of people and they heard like explosions going off beneath the foundation of the buildings, and you can easily theorize that 9/11 could have actually been an inside job. And of course the symbolism of 9/11, the 9 and the 11, and it happened at the turn of the second millennium, right? After the year 2000, following into 2001, that's when 9/11 happened. There was a ton of symbolic value, and of course Freemasons are all about symbolism, and that's how they could probably tie into this. And of course, you should really do your research on Freemasonry. They're probably involved in a lot of conspiracies in this world. I don't believe they're just a gentleman's club like so many different people claim, right? So many different people claim that the Freemasons are just a gentleman's club. They're not anything important, but you have to kind of understand. If you look into our history, like so many important, influential people were Freemasons. So many political figures were and are still Freemasons. Right? The early founding fathers of America were Freemasons, and they completely shaped the destiny of that country. Right? George Washington, many other political figures that were super important were Freemasons. So this cannot just be a gentleman's club. It frustrates me when people claim this. They don't do any thorough research and they just kind of disregard Freemasonry. It's just a gentleman's club, right? That's not the case. If it was just a gentleman's club, why would so many influential political figures be a part of this organization? People that have shaped the destiny of so many different countries and nations and people. You got to do your research. But to kind of bring it back to 9/11, again, the towers, they symmetrically fell downwards. That's kind of bizarre. The plane, you can see how the plane would just it would collide in, but it wouldn't cause some type of symmetrical. The buildings wouldn't just collapse in on themselves in such a perfect way. And again, some guy, he was saying a bunch of people were near, they were kind of hearing explosions go off near the foundation of the building. So there's a lot of evidence to kind of suggest that 9/11 was kind of an inside job, and that the plane and the terrorist and attacks and whatever that could have been a cover-up. Because again, you can kind of simulate picture two towers. How the plane? Of course, you can. The plane was striking it wasn't striking the foundation of the towers. It was way above it. The towers would have. It should have not been a perfect symmetrical collapse. That's super bizarre. If you go on any type of plane crash video or simulation, the plane would just it would go it wouldn't cause a perfect collapse of the building unless the plane was crashed into the foundation of the building. That's not what happened with 9/11. The plane was crashing midway between the towers. It wasn't striking at the foundation, so this could explain this could kind of heavily give you the idea that 9/11 could have been just an inside job. The planes, if it was the planes would have not been able to cause such a perfectly symmetrical collapse. It's kind of bizarre. But of course, a lot of people, skeptics, say, well, the condensed pressure from the rest of the building losing balance and collapsing could have caused the building to fall in onto itself, and that could explain why the 9/11 happened and why the buildings were struck down. Of course, the issue with all of this is that it's any conspiracy is it falls into the realm of infallibility. Right? It's hard to substantiate and prove if a conspiracy was actually happening in real, or if it was just if it was just the psychosis and delusion of some schizophrenic conspiracy theorist. But regardless, you should but of course 9/11 is old now, and really it's dead. Is irrelevant to a smaller degree, right? Other than 9/11, you have Jeffrey Epstein. He blew the lid off of the idea that there's a cabal of people out there, and they're abducting children and other people against their will, and they're trafficking humans, and they're using these humans as some type of weird, I don't want to use any provocative terminology, something to fulfill their more animalistic desires, and it's bizarre and insane. And there's some evidence for this. Again, Jeffrey Epstein, he blew the lid off of a lot of things. Of course, did he kill himself? Who knows? And this ties into a bunch of the music videos. I remember when I was growing up, Rihanna, Jay-Z, any other type of popular music artist, right? You would check their videos and you see a bunch of symbolism incorporated into their videos, and that would make you wonder why is that? Why do they all make the same weird type of hand gestures they create? They do these little weird symbols and stuff. Why is that? And there was some Mouthy Buddha. He was cracking into this and analyzing. Mouthy Buddha is a YouTuber that you should his channel has been taken down and off of YouTube, but you can go onto BitChute and check him out. He was claiming that the elite they have they use cryptic languages to communicate with themselves, so they can stay hidden away from the public, right? And they can just do their business without us noticing anything. And they use these cryptic language, this type of weird language, these hand gestures, these logos and symbols that they have. It cannot just be some type of schizophrenia. Right? This is not just a coincidence. Why would all of them perform the exact same symbols? Right? Again, the Illuminati symbols. You can find tons of videos on this. The same consistent symbols and logos keep appearing, and that's not a coincidence. That cannot be a coincidence. across any multiple different media platforms, across like any genre of film, any genre of video games, these symbols and these logos, and you know what I mean, right? If you're like growing up like past the 2000s era, you should have like the music videos, you know, Rihanna, Umbrella, Jay-Z, Michael Jackson, like, you know what I'm talking about. You are seeing this stuff in their cover art. It's bizarre, and it cannot just be a coincidence. It's way too consistent. Again, Jeffrey Epstein, he blew the cover on all of this. There is a conspiracy out there, and it needs to be kind of cracked. It needs to be figured out. It needs to be like exposed. And I hope a lot of you watching this can kind of help and contribute to this happening, right? To some type of global disclosure.